Hey, and welcome to Flightdeck Live. I am Tim Capper along with Cliffy D. This is the our first reaction post-game show here over at the Alouettes Flightdeck pod. Hey, Cliff, how you doing, buddy?
Good. I mean, that's more like it. I think that was the kind of game. It again, as it seems to be this year with the Alouettes, not a pretty win, but they needed to get this win. They had to get off the schneid. They had to get this 4-game losing streak taken care of, and they did against a team that they absolutely had in Calgary.
Yeah, this is the game that the Alouettes needed. As we know, they came into the game at 6-7, tied with Hamilton with total points in the CFL East. With Hamilton playing tonight versus the Toronto Argonauts, this was a must. Okay, I know we throw that term around a lot, quite a bit, Cliff. Was this a must-win game for the Alouettes?
Yes. There's no guarantee, especially now considering that Toronto's got the Eastern Division basically sewn up. If they take their foot off the pen, and Hamilton, who's been able to beat some of the top tier teams like the BC Lions, like the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, you want to keep pace. Right now, at 7-7, you're just slightly ahead of Hamilton now. We'll see how it turns out tonight against the Argos, but I mean, I honestly don't think that Toronto's going to start taking their foot off the gas just yet, but it's still not something you want to entertain the notion of. And in that case, Montreal has to win. They've got 4 games left, but they have to start winning. And it started tonight. It started with this game this afternoon against Calgary, and it was a convincing win too, in a place where they have not typically won very many games. That's the really impressive part.
Yeah, I know. I think they had lost 9 of last 10 at McMahon. And to come in like they have, and to hold Calgary to 11 points, Cliff, which, by the way, is the second least amount of points that the Owls have ever given up, that the Calgary has ever scored against the Alouettes in the history at McMahon. Only, the Owls have held them lower before, but that was back in '85. But this to hold them to 11 points at McMahon, no matter what their record is, it's just absolutely ecstatic. Again, second week in a row, this defense has really held up.
Yeah, and coming together at the right time. First of all, let's talk about Sean Lemon making his return to Calgary after having an all-star season last year and basically being cast aside. You have to believe that he was looking forward to this game, if only to remind them what a huge mistake they made in not bring back into the fold. A couple of nice interceptions. My goodness. Or fumble. I think it was 1 interception, 1 fumble recovery, if I'm not mistaken. But absolutely outstanding football from Sean Lemon. And you'll love to see it. You really do.
Yeah, this is an Alouettes team that hasn't done very well when it comes to their initial drives, of the game itself. I mean, it followed the same trend that it has for most of the year, but it really didn't matter because, I think it was twice that at Calgary was stopped on major drives. Once was on downs. The other one was on an interception. Twice, actually. Let me change that. I think it was 2 interceptions that were on basically that could have been touchdowns. A swing of 14 points, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Cliff. But that just showed right there. The defense was there from last week, and even though Cardi did throw an interception, wasn't as bad as last week, but still, even though with that early interception, the Alouettes were still able to overcome everything. It was a complete. They got the running game involved, and a lot of people were talking on social media prior to this game that they got to run the ball and continue. And even during the broadcast itself on TSN, they were talking about. That touchdown drive by the Alouettes early in the first half, it was stand back was involved. They got away from it, got back to it. This is Alouettes football that we need to see for the rest of the season for this team to continue continue playing for the rest of the year.
100%. I mean, Cody Fajardo played, I felt, an okay game. Not terrible, but not outstanding. And truthfully, he didn't have to play an outstanding football. He just didn't have to make as few mistakes as possible. Yes, he did throw the interception that was ill-advised. couple of his passes were not fantastic, but for the most part, he took care of the ball. He made sure to move the ball downfield. As you said, got Stanback involved in the game as well on the ground. He definitely made things happen. I mean, it wasn't the most outstanding performance from him, but he did what he had to do and actually played pretty decent football after losing his last 4 games. This was a game that he absolutely had to have, and let's give him credit. He definitely played a very, very solid game today.
Yeah, real quickly, because I know we'll go over to this a bunch more within the on the podcast this coming Wednesday. Fajardo Cliff, another great game from him. 22 of 29, 252 yards, 1-1. Stanback. See, this was to me the turning point within this game itself. They got Stanback involved. 14 rushes alone by Stanback, Cliff, for 81 yards. So
yeah, this is. And let's not forget, it was last year, game 1, where William Stanback suffered that terrible injury that sidelined him for a good portion of the season last year. I think for him, he was looking forward to this game, if only to prove that, okay, I am back, and I am who I say I am. And he showed it today. With that outstanding performance, he definitely showed that he's back without any question, and has proven to himself and to others that he definitely belongs in the conversation. There's absolutely no question about that.
I find it very weird, by the way, and something we didn't mention on the podcast is that on this week's 3 Down Nation podcast, they were talking about the potential of it being a rift when it came to William Stanback and being a part of the running game itself. You know, John Hodge was there and stuff like that, but I think the comment was made that he saw Stanback on the sideline after the game itself, and he looked okay. You and I both knew that it was a hand injury. At least it was reported as a hand injury. I don't understand. Yes, there, as you've mentioned before, that when it comes to Jason Moss, that he's had a history of not really embracing the running game. That's completely different from what it is this year. And I have no doubt that the reason why Stanback did not play last week was because of an injury that they didn't want him to play. If it was his gripping hand, then they don't want him to make it any worse than it was. This week just proved it. If it had been anything else, if there was a rift, then it would have been Walter Fletcher starting instead of William Stanback.
Yeah, and we had talked about it this past week on the podcast as well. Is you got to get the run game involved, whether it's Stanback, whether it's Antwi, whether it's Fletcher. You got to get the ball on the ground. You got to establish the ground game and take that pressure off of Cody. He keeps trying to make those home run shots. He keeps trying to make those outstanding plays. And yes, when he can make them, absolutely fantastic. But there are a lot of times too where he'll put himself in trouble, and it's just a simple matter of hand off the ball. You've got 3 studs in your backfield. Use them. And finally, it feels like Cody got the message. He got the memo saying, okay, I can hand it off to Stanback. I can hand it off to Andrew today. And both of them did pretty well when they got the ball. And again, this comes back to what we were talking about how you got to get Stanback involved more. Jason Moss is doing that, and credit to him. He got the memo. He got the message. And I hope that he sees the performance that Stanback made today and keeps it going. I hope this is not a one-off. I really hope that they understand that you've really got to get the ground game involved. Yes, you got to get Cody's confidence back. You got to get him throwing, and he was connecting with receivers today, making some really nice passes, but you got to get the ground game involved. If you're going to win football games here, you really, truly have to establish the run and keep it going.
Yep, that's true. By the way, here's some interesting stats, Cliff, that obviously we're going to expound more on the podcast this week. Cliff, and I have to go back and check. I think this is the first time all season, and please correct me if I'm wrong. The Owls did not give up one single sack. For a team that's leading the CFL in sacks given up, I think there was 50 coming in today's game. None. Absolutely none. None.
You know what? I actually felt like this can't be a mistake, because I saw that Cody was able to get himself set. Like, he had plenty of time in the pocket to be able to do things and make some of those outstanding throws. And even times where I felt, oh God, don't take that shot. And then he took the shot and it worked. And that really comes down to pass protection. Like, he was able to establish himself in the pocket and be that quarterback that we expect him to be. There was no happy feet today. Like, yes, he did have one scramble for a first down, and thank goodness he made it. But aside from that, I mean, for the most part, he stayed in the pocket. He was able to connect with receivers. He was able to hand off the ball. He played a very, very solid game today.
Yeah, and besides the one pass, I think was the Cole's speaker that he basically went through 3 defenders. Was that the pass? You know, it's funny to say if that were old Cody.
I listen. You know what? It's only crazy if it doesn't work, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the thought, and I'm pretty sure if you were to ask Cody, he'd probably say the exact same thing. Like, "Hey, it worked, didn't it?" Like, okay, you can't dispute that. But the one pass I want to talk about, that absolute dime he threw to Tyson Philpott. Oh my goodness gracious, that was just chef's kiss.
And just this short from scoring, just this short.
And I was thinking to myself, okay, well, you know what, Tyson Philpott. This isn't the first time he's had a fantastic game at McMahon Stadium. Let's not forget, he's a former University of Calgary Dino. Made some outstanding plays for the Dinos when he was playing there. So this had to be a bit of a homecoming for him to be able to get out there and play in front of his former home team, if you will, or so to speak. I mean, he knows this building very well, and I'm not surprised in the least that he had a pretty phenomenal game in that sense. Like, he should have got that touchdown though. I feel so bad.
It was short. I was checking. Yeah, I was checking the replay too. His knee went down. They spotted it correctly. I wanted him to have the touchdown too, but still, it was again. Everybody came out that needed to for this. And by the way, you were talking about Philpott. He led the team in receiving yards. 4 receptions, 5 targets, 87 yards.
We saw this last week against Toronto. Like Cody is finally starting to. I think he finally realizes, hey, I've got a stud here. I've got someone who can catch the ball. Besides just Austin Mack and Tyler Snead, who, by the way, both had a pretty outstanding game as well. Snead was just all over the place and definitely making some really nice catches.
I'm going to look into it a little bit more because I just want to comment on it. But for Flightdeck Live. Have you ever seen the grade 2 penalty called before? Because that on that Snead catch where obviously Micah Awe hit Snead, I don't think I've ever seen a grade 2 penalty called before in the CFL. I mean, and it's 25 yards. Usually if somebody gets ejected, it's 25 yards because it's 15 plus 10. And to think of it, if Awe had gotten ejected, that would have been a 35-yard penalty. But again, have you ever seen the grade 2 penalty called before? I reached out to Steve Daniel. I haven't received anything back from him yet, but I don't know if it's ever. I don't remember it being called, at least in some of the games that I've seen.
I've certainly never heard it called. I mean, this was a first to me. It's funny in the NCAA, like that would be considered targeting. Like that would be that kind of penalty. But targeting is not really something that's called in the Canadian Football League. It's usually just unnecessary roughness, or I guess now in this case, a grade 2.
I'll go into the rule book and I'll give if I can get a little bit more explanation to the fans, then I'll do just that when we go with the podcast this Wednesday too. So
I mean, what made me laugh was he wasn't ejected from the game based on that hit. I mean, a 25-yard penalty is massive, but he wasn't ejected for that. I mean, meanwhile, Austin Mack with an open hand slap on somebody gets ejected. So go figure.
And his opposing teammate on the other side, Reggie Begelton.
Yep.
So the Alouettes improved to 7-7. They are now 2 points up on the Hamilton Tiger Cats with them playing tonight. Obviously, we got a big home series coming up versus the Ottawa Red Blacks coming up this Saturday, and also on the Thanksgiving Classic on Thanksgiving Monday. Reminder that we are going to be having our first ever fan meet up that will be taking place between 10:30 and 12 at the tailgate. So stay tuned to our socials for everything like that. And we hope to have some more surprises. We're still got some things in the works, but again, we're talking about game balls last week, game balls this week, Cliff. Again, defense, but again, 11 points to help Calgary to 11 points at McMahon is just mind blowing.
Yeah, and when you talk about defense, you got to talk about first round draft pick this year, Lawal Ugalak. He played a monster game.
Yeah, almost his first interception too.
Almost. He had a couple of nice sacks. He had a couple of really outstanding tackles. I mean, the guy was playing like his hair was on fire. And man, he looked so good out there. I mean, just and doesn't look out of place lining up with like Amondo Sewell or Jamal Davis or any of these guys. I mean, like this dude can play football 100%, and he's national too. I mean, how can you not be happy about that? I mean, it's just between he and Tyler Snead, those two guys are really making their case for the Alouettes nominee for Rookie of the Year, which unfortunately cannot go to Austin Mack, unfortunately, which is unfortunate because he's played in the NFL, so he doesn't qualify, which is a shame.
Didn't TSN Edge put something on Twitter where basically they were correct? It's like no. As much as we would love him to be Rookie of the Year contender, it can't happen.
Unfortunately, it can't. Tyler Snead can though. Lawal Ugalak can, and quite frankly, like that's the race to watch right there when it comes to Rookie of the Year as far as Alouettes nominees go. Like those are, I don't know who's going to win between those two, but they're both making their case. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
Marc-Antoine Dequoy was also outstanding today.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Who thought? I guess Jake Mayer thought he was an actual Calgary receiver because the ball was literally thrown right to him.
Yeah. I mean, what can you say about that? I mean, Dequoy this year. I mean, you want to talk about the most outstanding Canadian? That's your nominee right there for the Alouettes. I mean, that guy just makes plays happen. I mean, there are times where sometimes he's a little too fast for his own good. Like he just blows past offensive players and misses the tackle. But when he makes plays like that, it's like all is forgiven. Okay, but if you can make outstanding plays like that, and even the pass breakup he had in the end zone against, I want to say Odom Dukes late in the fourth quarter, like that, which could have been another Calgary touch. That could have been Calgary's second touchdown, but that was just swatted away. So once again, Dequoy just really making plays happen, and just an absolutely outstanding game from him as well.
Yeah. So make sure you stay tuned to the podcast coming up this Wednesday. If you happen to miss any part of Flight Deck Live this evening, you can catch it the full replay over on YouTube, X, and over on our Facebook page. Again, a huge 2-game series. You can't put anything. You can't look at. You can't look ahead from Ottawa, even though they've lost as many games as they have so far. It's huge games coming up versus the Ottawa Red Blacks, obviously. This coming up again this Saturday. Do expect to see us on the field again over at TD Place over in Ottawa post-game for the next Flight Deck Live. Again, we will be there to support the Owls and to get you guys any post-game reactions that we can. So, again, Alouettes win, break their 4-game losing streak, 28-11 over the Calgary Stampeders, improved to 7-7, Cliff. Again, Ottawa this week. Very curious to see what happens. So,
and it's funny. Darnell Sankey had actually spoke to a reporter this past week, and he said, "We're going to win the next 5 games and go to the Grey Cup and win the Grey Cup." And we all kind of laughed. I mean, it's just kind of like, hey, that'd be awesome, but I mean, that's a pretty tall task, and you got to back that up. So far, Darnell, it's 1 game, but could be the start of something big. You never know. That's the amazing thing about the Canadian Football League is you just never know. So give him props for backing up his talk. Just 1 game, but it's a start. So props to the Alouettes getting off that schneid. That 4-game losing streak is over with. Cody Fajardo, I think, has his confidence back. He's starting to look a little bit more like Cody we've come to expect. Defensively, this team is on another level, but you got to maintain that. As you said, home and home versus Ottawa coming up. You got to get those dubs as well. I mean, 1 game at a time. Just go 1-0 next week. That's all you got to do. You did the thing this week. Now you focus on next week, and again, you cannot take Ottawa lightly based on what we saw last night versus Saskatchewan. I think Ottawa, nobody's told them that they're in last place and that their season's over or anything like that. Like, they still think that they can make something happen, and Montreal cannot afford to take them lightly by any stretch. And I don't think they will. But once again, great win today. Enjoy it. But tomorrow, you got to have that mentality of back to work, back to going 1-0 next week. Simple as that.
Exactly. We appreciate everybody who is watching us live, who's commented, and who will be watching us on the archive version of this episode of Flight Deck Live. So, Cliffy, I appreciate you, buddy. I'll speak to you this week, and obviously you and I will join up on Wednesday for the next episode of the Alouettes Flight Deck podcast. So for everybody here at Flight Deck Live, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. See you soon.